Lotus Ventures Inc. is a BC-based medical marijuana company poised to launch into the rapidly evolving cannabis sector. Lotus is in the final review stage of the Health Canada approvals to become a licensed producer, having arranged facility financing of up to $12 million, plus building permits for its prototype indoor production facility. Shares trade under the symbol J on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Visit our website at lotusventures.ca.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for institutionaladvisors.com. Welcome back to the show, Bob.
Yeah, hi, Jim. It's good to be with you and with our listeners.
Yes, a long weekend where here in BC we'll finally have some sunshine to go along with it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
The senior markets in the U.S. had a little bit of a meltdown earlier in the week, but it looks like they're back on the way up again.
Yeah, it was, we had a positive market, and it was perhaps due for a correction, and then you had let's call it the hysterical side of U.S. politics, got itself all agitated about all sorts of evil things that Trump was doing, so that got hit. But the other one that was not as widely seen was that the Brazil financial markets, both their bonds and their stocks, got hit very sharply. Again, that one was also related to some kind of a political scandal. But the way I look at it here is that when you have a problem in one, remote or smaller market, it has a tendency to spread out. You go back to 1997, when on July 1st, all of a sudden there was a problem with the Thai currency in Thailand, and what it was is simply that the Thai central bank had run out of U.S. dollars for their reserve, and they had to tighten, and financial assets started down, and immediately the authorities said, this is will be isolated, it won't spread. And then it spread to the Philippines, and then they said, it won't spread any further. So that began in July, and it kept rippling around, creeping around, I think that's a better term. And then it hit New York in September, where they then had the worst month for bonds, for corporate bonds in a decade. So, anyways, we're watching things like Brazil. The hit in the U.S. markets was more correction, and we have been looking for positive stuff to continue through until around May, around June. It could be centered in a 6-week window in here, and it's turned back to positive here now. You've got credit spreads not changing. You had the tremendous narrowing of credit spreads from the financial calamity in January and February 2016. And there was a fabulous narrowing of credit spreads right through until a month or so ago, when since there's been no more narrowing, but that hasn't reversed to widening. But this one has a seasonal component, whereby if you're on a party in credit spreads, which is, of course, the difference between high-grade bonds and low-grade bonds, if you're on a party going into June, there's a high probability you'll get a reversal. So we're watching for that one, but not yet. The other one that has been changing has been the yield curve, which is the difference between long-dated and short-dated treasuries. And it has made a better attempt to reverse than you've seen in the spread market. So, but what it will take to bring a little sobriety to the financial markets will be both the curve and credit spreads turning towards adversity, which seems probable for after mid-year. Maybe we'll have a pleasant summer, and for financial markets, choppy up and down trading, and then perhaps in the latter part of September, you can have the clouds of sobriety will be gathering, to use an old phrase.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
I'm Douglas Mason, President and CEO of Rainy Mountain Royalty Corp., RMO on the TSX Venture Exchange. Rainy Mountain's Brunswick property is located in the Rideout Shear Zone in Ontario. With grab samples running as high as 32 grams per ton gold, a drill program will commence this spring to test the numerous targets located by recent groundwork. For more information, visit our website, rmroyalty.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Bob Hoye. Bob, the price of oil has gone over $50 a barrel. Again, OPEC and Russia saying they'll continue their production cap for another 9 months. Is this all talk, or have they actually been doing that?
As far as I can tell, Jim, I think they've managed to cut back their own production. And this, really is a bureaucratic exercise. These guys will get fixed on things like, we've got to have a higher price. So then they reduce production and sell less of it. So they're not making so much money. But they have the satisfaction of thinking they can move markets. And we've found over years is that when a government or a government agency decides to move a price up or down, mainly up, if the market's ready for a price advance, it'll work, and the price advance will last until it doesn't work anymore. So you have a fascinating struggle here with OPEC, which really doesn't have the power or the discipline it had back in the 1980s. But you also have the new technological revolution going on with fracking of tight oil or tight natural gas horizons, and of course the Americans, the production they're ramping up is terrific. And with this new horizontal drilling, they can turn the tap off in an instant and turn it on in an instant, so to speak. And I've seen forecasts that there are some fields, shale fields in the States, that can produce oil at $15 a barrel, which is a huge difference between $50 a barrel, where it is now. And but hey, crude's firm. I looked at the oil stocks yesterday, the XLE, and it looked like it had wants to go up. So you can get a rally in these things for a while, but the end of the game will be that free market interests, not just in the United States, because fracking of shale deposits is spreading to other parts of the world. It's just that the U.S. is so far ahead in the game and these guys will sell it at the market. As a matter of fact, they're selling forward. I remember reading that on the last big rise in crude oil when it got up to 55, that the oil producers and the shale guys in the States were very businesslike in selling forward and catching the price. So they would say, thanks very much, OPEC, for helping pop the market up for crude. So now we also want to keep in mind that on crude oil prices, often there can be a seasonal weakness in towards the end of the year. So here we are, good, relatively, well, not great times. I mean, crude did get up to $147 in 2008, and 2014 it was at 107, and the low in 2016 was $26. So that's quite a change of fortune, but that also represents a huge technological revolution in the industry. And as we've mentioned before, in the early, like 1910, around then, is when in the U.S. mining people discovered that they could put into production very large copper deposits, they're called copper porphyries, with low-grade copper. That was at Bingham Canyon, just south of Salt Lake City, Utah. And that hole in the ground continues to expand. They're still operating. So since 1910, that's amazing. And then in the 1970s, you had the revolution whereby mining people learned how to mine lower grade deposits of gold. So why then would there not be a technological revolution in petroleum and natural gas? And this is what's happening. And yet, I think many of the people, investors in the petroleum sector, like portfolio managers, and a number of advisors are still not accepting just how much of a technological revolution is going on, and that the instead of crude trading between $50 and $100, it's going to be trading between $50 and $25. It's going to be a painful instruction when it finally gets through.
Volvo has announced that it is designing its last diesel engine. They said going forward, they only expect hybrid or electric vehicles.
Yeah, the truth is finally coming out in diesel engines is that they really are create quite a bit of pollution, and yet it was pushed as the savior because you had very good efficiencies in crude oil and also in diesel, and also at one time diesel was quite a bit cheaper to gasoline, but it's not working. I think you're going to have quite a reform there. As to electric cars, I think the answer to it would be much better seen if there were no subsidies to electric cars. Let the market sort it out whether it wants to have electric cars or gasoline cars or cars fired by natural gas or whatever. Let the free market determine that. You'll end up with the most efficient decisions on what kind of energy one should be using to drive, transportation. And perhaps we can get a political revolution going on whereby more and more market forces are determining decisions rather than the fiat decisions of powerful bureaucrats. So, hey, it's an interesting world.
Canada's industry minister claims carbon taxes won't affect industry, but in British Columbia, there was a major manufacturer who moved their operations from BC to Washington State where they don't have a carbon tax. Yes, it does influence business, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a tax. It's just a novelty to get through extra taxation, and British Columbia has the carbon tax because previous Premier Gordon Campbell had a meeting with Arnold Schwarzenegger in California, and of course California is absolutely crazy when it comes to energy, that's a good idea. So carbon taxing is utter nonsense, and it should be viewed as just straight what it is a gimmick to make taxation a little more appealing, and the sooner one gets rid of it, the better.
Well, at least in Alberta, they get rebates to low and middle income earners, so they get some of the carbon tax back. In BC, who knows where the money goes?
Yeah, it was like decades ago in the 1920s and 30s when in Canada and the U.S., the federal government put taxation on gasoline that all of that taxation was to go to build and maintain roads and bridges. But instead it ends up going into a slush fund, and the money just gets pissed away wherever, whatever the need is at the moment. So, and that, of course, is what's happening with carbon taxation. Well, it just goes into the great hungry consumption mode that government is in these days. So, yeah, I think we're ready for a great political reform here, and who knows, could happen.
We'll have more with Bob Hoye right after the break.
Avon Resources Limited is a gold exploration company with significant projects in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and the Yukon. Trading on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ABN, and the pink symbol ABN-AF. Surrounded by world-class gold deposits and mines, Avon's 23,000 hectares Forest Kerr Gold Project is located in the heart of the Golden Triangle in northwestern BC. For more information, visit us at avonresources.com.
Keep informed. Receive our weekly recap of thought-provoking articles, podcasts, and radio delivered to your inbox for free. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage, HowStreet.com. Welcome back. We're talking with Bob Hoye. Bob, we have a question from one of our frequent listeners, Henry Solomon. He wants to know what the outlook for the U.S. dollar is.
Yeah, that's a good question. We've been working on the fact that it seems to be in a bottoming pattern here for the last 4 months, and in looking at it this week, the bottoming pattern in 2014 took about 5 months, and let's say we're about month 4 in a 5-month bottoming pattern. It has to get below 96.50 to break down seriously, and it's been declining this week, probably driven by the latest supposed scandal about Trump. So a little loss of nerve there, but let's give it some time. There could be changes in the credit markets once we're getting past mid-year, and a change away from the party mode would include the U.S. dollar becoming stable and firming up. This is what we've seen in previous contractions, is that the U.S. dollar does firm up because it's still the senior currency. And one of the things that people notice when you get into a contraction is that all of a sudden people who maybe in New Guinea who have been borrowing money suddenly just realize that they've got to pay it back in U.S. dollars. So effectively, the huge debt bubble, much of it is a huge short in U.S. dollars. So the outlook for the U.S. dollar is continuing the bottoming process here for another 4 or 5 weeks, and then a probability of it firming up, and that would be associated with some interesting events in the credit markets.
What about our wobbly Canadian loonie?
Oh my God, it's still going to go down to the last low, which was 68. You've got a government that is unreal. It has no sense of how imposing it is. It's on a sense of mission that liberals seem to be motivated by, where they have to intrude in everybody's life, and this takes a lot of money, and they're already, I don't know what they were looking for, a deficit of $3 billion, and they're already out to 10 or 12 or something. So it is Ottawa spending everybody else's money, thinking that they're going to make everybody else's life much better, and it is actually purely selfish that they've got the power, they like the grand style, and it is going to take a lot of money beyond what one can tax, and that has to be satisfied by depreciating the currency. And it is an age-old scam that central governments always fall into. So, yeah, it's easy down to 68 on the Canadian. I think it's around 71 now, so that's not so far away. But perhaps in the new free trade agreement that will be negotiated, perhaps the Americans will have enough gumption to put in a ticket that the Central Bank of Canada can no longer cheat by depreciating the currency. So, hey, let's look to the positive side that maybe we could end up with the Canadian dollar pegged to the U.S. at par and a currency board to run it. Hey, there's all kinds of exciting things out there that one can consider.
Well, that would mean the end of $8 cauliflower in the middle of winter.
And $10 asparagus when you really need it. So,
Bob,
yep, that would be good stuff.
Bob, have a great long weekend.
You too, Jim, and we'll talk to you next week.
My guest has been market historian Bob Hoye. He's the chief investment strategist for institutionaladvisors.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Any questions for the show or for our guests, including Bob, can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.